Our generation is very, very good at making our happiness accessible. As a result of that, we do really think about what we want to try, and we do consider the consequences, and we do consider that we might be a little less further along on the other side of it. But I think we've also considered that there's certain realities that are just so far out of our reach for our generation, given the state of things. So you just reevaluate your priorities.
You're listening to the Talking 20 podcast. This podcast is for you if you're in your 20s and you're thinking, what the hell am I doing? We've all been there, and we want to talk about it. We're your hosts, Bridget O'Rourke and Mary Margaret Courtney, and we sit down with fellow millennials to chat about their journey and hear what they've learned along the way. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Talking 20 podcast. Today we're joined by the one, the only, Jordan Percival to chat about the journey of his 20s. Hi, Jordan. How are ya?
Hello. Hey, guys.
Jordan has pretty much had the epitome of a millennial's journey in their 20s, and he's full of a healthy mix of young, dumb 20s boy stories and valuable insight. And I've had the pleasure of having Jordan's guidance over the past 3 years career-wise, because Jordan is actually the one who hired me at my current job where we still work together. Not in the office, but I must admit that I do miss hearing your stupid boy stories every day.
My stupid boy stories. You just went from guidance to stupid boy stories.
A healthy mix of both.
I think it's professional input is the word you're looking for. And it's got you to where you are today.
Yes, it has. And I don't know if you know this, Jordan, but I actually brought it up on a previous episode, or depending on when we release this, maybe a later episode, but you're actually the one who got me out of one of the deepest valleys in my 20s.
Valleys?
Yes, one of the, I was job hunting, couldn't find a job, going for interviews, getting let down, until I came for the interview at our current job, and here we are today. Do you remember that interview?
Oh, absolutely I remember that interview.
What did you think?
It was, because I had done a lot of interviews, between that day and the day after, and everybody was it was funny, because everybody was really just bombarding me with facts. Here is my resume, here are my badges of honor, here is everything I've done. And it's just you ever get when you feel like people are just talking at you? It was a lot of that. And I get it because the millennial job hunt is so difficult, right? You get out of school and it's all of these entry level jobs, they want 3 to 5 years experience, and they're not even including the 4 years of study you just did. And you're just sitting there what do you want me to do? I'm 23. Was I supposed to have started working here 5 years ago? That makes no sense to me. So you're in this kind of stressed out position where you're okay, if I get 5 minutes alone in a room with somebody who might be able to help me get a job, I'm just going to elevator pitch the shit out of them. It's just going to be, here's everything I've done. And what I liked about you was that wasn't the case. We sort of just kind of chatted for a little bit, and I asked you everything I wanted to know. And then when it got to the stage of that interview where it was okay, I know that you're qualified, I know you can do this, I know you here's your schooling background, everything. And then you kind of get into that vibe of okay, well, are you gonna fit here? Are you just gonna spend all your time nose to the grindstone, sort of living out your days, or are you going to be a presence in the office? Are you going to be somebody that fits in well with everybody? And when you get into that stage, you're sort of talking and you're just chatting back and forth. I think that's where the actual character of somebody comes out. And I think you were the first person, if not the only person in that row of candidates that I was okay, I can actually have a conversation with this person that they don't make about them and what they can offer immediately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like it made me a lot more comfortable because you're around my age, which was not the case with a lot of the other jobs that I was applying to. It was not millennials hiring. It was older generations hiring, and they just didn't understand.
Yeah, and it's very easy to get intimidated. in that setting.
It's also relating, like if there's someone older and they're in an authoritative position, we just assume that maybe we won't relate to them, we won't communicate as easily. And when you get in a room with someone closer to your age, you can go like, do we jive? Do we fit in? And especially in a creative role, it's important to have people that you feel confident and comfortable around. And it is harder. It's harder if that older person doesn't necessarily, bring their personality to an interview.
Well, I think it's important to note that in this situation specifically, it's like, I am not Bridget's boss. She didn't know that at the time, I don't think.
I thought you were my boss.
Like, I have no authority over her whatsoever in her professional career. I didn't have full say on whether or not she actually got hired. It was more just, I was making a recommendation to her actual boss about who out of these candidates should be hired or, move on to another interview.
But still such a cool way to do it. Like, it's actually such a brilliant way to be like, you're not actually going to be this person's boss. So you're just going in to like check people out and ask them questions. Don't get ahead of yourself because you're not in charge of them. And it actually like removes that power struggle.
Well, it was great because it was like,
I like it.
I got to be the filter for something where I knew this position would be somebody that I'm working with all the time. Right. So it was like, if I'm going to be like desk adjacent to somebody every day and consistently working with them and need to be able to speak to them about things and they suck, like that sucks for me.
What about when they throw like rolled up papers at you? Does that get on your nerves?
I've been in the office twice since lockdown for things, and I've trashed your desk both times. So you're coming back to some shit. Just so you know.
Ooh. So you and Mary know each other a completely different way, which was completely random. So why don't you guys talk about how you know each other?
COCA, right?
COCA. Yeah. Canadian Organization of Campus Activities. It's where I know most people.
It's like most of your social circle is that COCA network, eh?
Yeah. And yeah, for people who don't know, so COCA is an organization for college, university, campus activities. Anyone who's a president or a vice president or whatever, they can come and they get education, they network, they can book artists, they can, it's a great organization and conference for these people who work on student associations.
For me, my connection to COCA was, I think my first actual job in the music industry was for a booking agency called Partick Artists out of Ottawa. So I was working for them and I was like the designated guy to come to COCA, like one of the people that were on staff there that like, because they were like, okay, well, if it's a student organized thing, so we want people who are close to the age of the student government people who are out there looking to hire shows and book things because it's all students.
Is that how you got into the music industry? Did you always want to be in the music industry?
I've always played music. Growing up, I've always done gigs and written music, and that's kind of been, I had like my rock star phase where I was like, I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to be a songwriter, and that's my thing. So I was always like one toe in the water for that. But it wasn't until that I was like, oh shit, this is a business. Like I can make money and do things and like help people and really get music out there. Because my thing was like, I was always the guy that's making people playlists, that's bringing people to see bands. That's like, I just really get off on that idea of like, I'm showing you something I'm passionate about, good music. I'm trying to share this with you. And like, if you respond to it really well, that's like one of my favorite things ever. If you're like, oh shit, that band is awesome, or that song is great, or, those lyrics are extremely meaningful to this. I love that. So I think I was really drawn to that always. So getting into the industry was really cool for me. And I always originally, I was going to be a teacher. Like I was digging out stuff from my parents' house a few weeks ago, and I found all of these like old graduation cards and like notes and stuff in a box. And I found all these cards from like my graduation and birthdays and stuff. And in it, like aunts and uncles and my parents were like you're going to be a wonderful teacher.
Sorry, is that high school? That's high school graduation?
High school graduation, yeah.
Okay.
And like I co-opted at an elementary school. I worked at camps. I was always working with kids. So everybody was like, yeah, Jordan, that guy's gonna be a teacher.
So what did you go to post-secondary for?
So I went to post-secondary. I applied to Brock for Teachers College and didn't get in. So I went general and was like, I'm just going to take a year and try again. And then I never ended up trying again. And I just graduated with English and philosophy because I was like, I like those things.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe I'll do Teachers College. Maybe I'll do something else. And then this stuff kind of started happening with the music industry and I was getting way more involved in it. So I applied for the Fanshawe Music Industry Arts Program. And so they take like 100 kids a year or something. And I ended up getting in. So I was like, well, I guess that's my path now. Guess I'm doing that, moving to London.
So how does that go for you? Like, are you in high school going, I want to do music, but that's not a secure path? Or do you, like, you have a passion to be a teacher? So did you really want to go down that road, or was it the safer route?
I realized that what I liked about being a teacher and what I was passionate about, I realized very quickly I didn't want to do it occupationally. I wanted to do it more philosophically. I always idolized the cool teachers in my life, like the people who just really wanted you to succeed, had great stories, rooted for you, shared everything. Like they were the people that if you spent time with them, you were not walking away empty-handed by any means, whether it's a new skill or perspective or story, whatever it was. And I realized like, this is why I love those people. I don't love them because they're teachers. So I think like I really realized that I wanted to move like a teacher and act like the cool teacher and be the cool teacher, so to speak. Like I guess it's that cross section of when you realize that what you want to be isn't necessarily what you want to do. You know what I mean? So I kind of thought I want to be the cool teacher, but I don't want to do the cool teacher's job.
I have a friend who actually went and got her master's in teachers, and she had the same kind of mentality where she was like, I have this vision of how I want to be a teacher and how I want to change people's lives, but systematically, you can't do that. There are a lot of things that you have to, like a path that you have to follow that don't allow you to bring in your own creativity in that way that helps people thrive.
Yeah, and I respect teachers a lot because they put up with a lot of garbage to do what they do. And you don't realize that until you're older. Like they're just siphoned off, right? They're in this little box of how they can teach and what they can share and what they can do. And it's so much smaller than what they have to offer for the people that are passionate about it. And I think that must really suck.
So when you're getting all these cards and people telling you like, hey, you're going to be this amazing teacher, this is so good for you, this is a really good fit, and then you start your path in your 20s and decide, you know what, maybe not the best thing for me, and you go back to Fanshawe for, sorry, what was the program?
Yeah, music industry arts.
What were people's reactions?
Like, it was a lot of questions. A lot of like, I think a lot of people thought I was having some kind of like quarter life crisis, to be honest with you, where they're like, this guy's just so lost. And there's just like, he had a plan and he was so close and he didn't stick to the plan. So I felt that like nobody was ever against me. Nobody was ever like, you can't do that. My parents have always been amazingly cool and supportive of everything. But I think a lot of it was in my own head because as people our age and millennials, and we sort of do get in our own head a lot. Like it kind of goes back to this theory I have about when people try to say like our generation is selfish or like we're really involved in ourselves. I don't think it's so much that. I think it's not that we're only concerned with ourselves. It's that we're very concerned about ourselves. I think it's like I am a problem that requires my severe and immediate attention at all times. So I gotta focus. And I got to like think internally about what I want and how I'm going to act and who I'm going to associate with and the path I'm going to try. And it is very much kind of all about me in that moment. And I'm not saying it's an excuse to be a dick. I'm not saying like other people don't exist. I'm saying that we have to be cognizant of that. And that's something I've learned is like, don't forget to care about other people, but definitely it's okay if you are concerned about you. So I think doing that came from a place where I was concerned about me. I knew that I really liked music. I knew that I believed in what I was doing. I knew that it made me feel useful. It made me feel like I was getting somewhere. And it allowed me to be in an environment that I liked to be in. So I was like, well, you know what? Like I did it. I did the thing that you're supposed to do. I did the go to university, get your degree, put the diploma on the wall, and then like I did it. So now I'm going to go do this thing for me and see if it pans out. And if it doesn't, and I've just wasted a bunch of money and fucked up, I'll deal with it. But at the same time, it's like, I'm going to do that thing.
I think so many people are going, like in their 20s right now, are going to listen to this and definitely like want to scream back at the podcast when they hear that thing about like the quarter life crisis. Cause I think it's hilarious that people they think that, and they think that there's like, I had a similar adjustment. I came out of school and I was like, yep. Like you, I was like, that's part of my being. This is like musical theater is who I was. It's not what I want to do as a profession. And it took those like early 20 something years to figure that out, because when you're 16, 17 years old, figuring out where you want to go to school, your brain's not even fully developed yet. So it's so ridiculous that you get this like quarter life crisis and people going like, are you sure? And you're like, no, like I'm way more mature at the age of 20 deciding to go into a program than I am at 17. Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah,
like,
I'm more sure now.
Yeah, exactly. I just like when you said that, I was like, oh, yes, 100%. Such bullshit.
Well, it's not that it's not that you're safe from that idea that it could be a stress reaction. And I'm sure a lot of people have done a lot of stupid shit as a result of it being a stress reaction. But I think the majority of us, like, we are very good at making our happiness accessible. Like our generation is very, very good at that. And I think that as a result of that, we do really think about what we want to try, and we do consider the consequences, and we do consider that we might be a little less further along on the other side of it. But I think we've also considered that there's certain realities that are just so far out of our reach for our generation, given the state of things, whether you want to talk about, the housing market, whether you want to talk about just the way relationships are, the way social media has affected us, the way anything, like just the jobs not being as accessible as they were. Like we can get into any of that, and you sit there and we had to sort of adapt, right? We do these things where we're like, okay, I don't think I'm going to be able to provide a lot of the stuff that my parents provided for me to my kids. And I don't think I'm going to be able to keep up the lifestyle being as fortunate as I was growing up. And I know that's not everybody's situation, but that was my situation. I grew up very lucky in a nice house. We went on vacations, things like, I'm a fortunate guy. There's no getting around that I had a privileged upbringing. And I don't think I can match that lifestyle with who I am and what I want to do right now, unless I like marry rich or something. So you just reevaluate your priorities. Like, I think everybody has that like stupid little millennial thing, not even millennial thing, that they do that just instantly makes them happy because it's accessible. Is it fucking avocado toast? Maybe. I don't know. But it's like, for me, I love going to the movies by myself.
Really?
If I'm having like a garbage day, I will just go to the movies when they're open and it's not a pandemic, whatever.
Bet that's how you're going to meet your future wife. She's also going to be going to the movies by herself. And it's going to be a superhero movie.
See, you're painting a really pretty picture, but the reason that I like going to movies by myself is because nobody talks to me. So she's not going to fall in love with me because I will not speak to her.
No, this is how we set the scene. Man walks in, sits down. He has popcorn. Woman walks in, sits down. She has a soda. Neither of them talk. Man realizes he forgot to buy soda. Girl realizes she forgot to buy popcorn. without saying a word, right before the third fight scene of the Marvel movie. He passes her popcorn, she passes her drink, and they leave holding hands forever.
I think you have to stop at the sharing popcorn thing, because strangers asking to take a sip of your soda is just so off-putting.
That's your future wife. What are you talking about?
I know, but we have to switch. We have to change this so that I just offer her some of my popcorn, and even though I'm thirsty, I make the sacrifice to not ask for some of her soda. I'm just the giver in this situation.
Chivalry is not dead, folks. Well, you mentioned a bunch of things and you said we could really get into them.
Yeah.
Mortgage, relationships, etc. And we are. But I think we need to back up to this whole thing about stupid decisions.
Okay.
Bridget's got a really good questions for you. So we're just going to let her take this one away.
So Jordan, you were a frat boy in your first year of university, which it's something that completely blew my mind because you just do not seem like the frat boy type. I know the frat boy type and it's not you. So what is it like being a frat boy? Are they all douchebags? Apparently not.
No. So
do you have any stupid stories?
I'll tell you how it sort of happened. Cause I was very much like you, where I watched all the American Pie movies and I was like, these guys are douchebags, misogynistic, a-holes, whatever, not the guys I want to talk to. So my roommate came home one day from one of those university fairs where all the clubs join and they try to get you to join their thing, but they'll throw you a frisbee or whatever. So he came home and was he had this frisbee and was like, guys, I'm going to join this frat. These guys seem really cool. So he ended up going out and joining this thing, and I would just rip on him for it. Every joke you think that I made. No holds bar. I was relentless about it. And then it was around Halloween where he was like, yeah, I'm gonna join this thing, and he had already joined and he was in it. And then he asked me if I wanted to come to this event. And I was like, I do not want to come to that event. And then he was like, no, you'll love it. I was like, okay, what is it? He goes, it's a haunted house. So they're turning the fraternity house into a haunted house for Big Brothers Big Sisters. So they're all dressing up and they're doing this big charity thing where you bring the kids through. They had all this stuff and you just kind of jump out and scare kids, and it's for charity and it's cool.
This is so up your alley.
Yeah, well, that was right up my alley. I was like, that sounds actually pretty fun. So I'm going to show up and do this thing. So I came out and I met a bunch of the guys, and they were all just the opposite of who you would have thought they were going to be. They were all just really intelligent, had their stuff together. A lot of the older guys, I really looked up to because, they were really introspective, kind, just cool people. So I ended up doing it. And for 2 years after that, I was the philanthropy chair. So I planned all the philanthropy events, all the charity things. So we ended up doing a coffee house. So we raised money to build wells and buy goats for villages and in underdeveloped countries. So we did a lot of really cool events that I was really proud of on a personal side of things to bring this, because there was obviously the party side of it, and we threw keggers, we had a good time, but the focus of it was just about providing something to the community, our student community. To me, it felt no different than a student organization, a student government in a way, because a lot of it was just about making that university experience better for people.
This was so much more humble than I thought it was going to be.
I know. I thought he was going to be yeah, we were
It's sweet. I almost am dripping a tear versus the gross stories I thought we were going to get out of this.
You also got to note that it's way different in Canada. This isn't really the Greek life thing is not really a thing in Canada. It's, they have it at universities, but it's not celebrated in the same way. It's not held up on this pedestal where you get people with shit tons of money and egos and family heritage involved that are making it this gross, hazy, weird thing. It's just, to me, it's another club that's available to you at university to make your experience better and help you connect with that community and just do cool shit, have cool experiences, remember your time there fondly. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Sorry it wasn't more like
boring. Just kidding.
Releasing chickens.
These stories suck.
Well, so the best thing that you could probably say came out of your frat experience was your roommate, correct?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would say a lot of the friendships I have currently are those guys that have kind of lasted the test of time here, especially Coop, especially my roommate. Yeah, because we've lived together a few times. We just bought this house together. You know, two heterosexual males.
Yeah, we want to get into that. We want to know because
okay.
Recently buying a house, you buy it with a friend, which as a millennial I think is really cool. It's resourceful. It's possible. But we have lots of questions about this because I think anyone listening is going to be like, "Hey, wait, two bros who are in a frat together bought a house together. That seems ridiculous." But we know you guys, and it was a super adult thing. It was not like two frat boys just being silly. But anyway.
Well, I mean, we do keep a keg tapped in the bathtub at all times. Right. So there's that.
They've turned it into a frat house. They have their own frat house now.
So the value's definitely gone down since you've moved in.
You want to know what's crazy? Our realtor called us like 2 months ago now to basically, I think, like sort of slightly encourage us to sell because she was like, the value of your house is up like $200,000.
And when did you buy?
September.
Wow.
That's
fantastic.
What was it like looking for a house during that boom? Was that when the housing market was up, or was that was right before, wasn't it?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I have no idea where on that timeline of like things being insane we were, because I just didn't want to think about it. I was like, I have this goal in mind. I have money set aside because, again, I've been lucky, and I think in a situation where a lot of us have, where when I was done school, I had a significant amount of student debt and really cool parents who let me go back and live in their house for as long as I needed to and save money and pay things off and not pay them rent. I think like all I had to do was cut the lawn and barbecue sometimes. And it was like the ideal situation for that.
So how long did it take you to save up then? After school, you're paying off student debt and you're saving up for a house. How long was that whole process?
Well, between working and playing gigs and any sort of like odd job thing I could do, it didn't take me too long. Like it was more, I think it was like 2.5 years before I was like, I can pitch for half of a down payment.
Okay, yeah. We have to take into consideration that it's half as well.
Exactly. So my other thing was like, it was a lot of conversations about what was available to me and weighing things out. Like I've always been brought up on that idea of rent is the devil. Like I've always had such a problem with rent. I haven't had bad landlords. It's just that concept of it has always bothered me. It feels like when you're like on a road trip and you're driving in the States or something and you like come up on a toll booth and you're like, oh fuck, another one, and you're like digging around in your pocket for $5 just so you can carry on. It's like that is rent. You are just existing in a place for a month, and then somebody like knocks on the door, takes $800 from you, and then you're like, yeah, I can exist for another month here. Not that that's like that is necessary for a lot of people, and they don't have the situation that I have, and it's like you got to do something. But I think being able to sort of jump over that weird hurdle we have that cohabitation should be like exclusive to dating somebody or like a romantic relationship is weird, because like it's not only are you sharing the cost of a mortgage, but like you're sharing equity. You're putting this money into something that you're going to get back later. It's an investment that you're going to get more money. By the time I sell this place, I'm going to have more money than I put in. Potentially even a full down payment on another house. So like just to have those agreements in place where everything's 50-50, like you're going in as friends, all of the legal stuff is dealt with beforehand, before there's any reason to be mad at each other. I think it's a really smart idea.
Yeah. What other variables did you and Cooper have to consider when you first started talking about doing this together?
Well, I think we had to consider how we were going to deal with all the associated costs. And something that we did was we just basically decided that in order to get through all that and not be nickeling and diming each other and keeping track of everything and needing receipts, we were going to open one account. So we opened a house account at one bank. We both have cards and access to it. And the agreement is that we both make one full mortgage payment into that account per month. So that covers bills, that covers property tax, like all the money that's in that account goes to paying all of that stuff.
Brilliant.
And then food, external things, fun things, that's all, on us and our own personal accounts. But anything that's house related, we're doing our bathroom right now. So all the stuff that we need for that is coming out of that account. And as long as we're each putting a full mortgage payment in there, that's an extra nearly, $2,000 going into that account every month that just keeps going up. And then at the end of the year, we kind of look at what's in there and we can make one large payment on that mortgage to kind of bring it down a little bit.
Yeah. And like one mortgage payment, I mean, as someone who has a house, it is stressful because you were talking about the tolls and rent. And I was like, it also feels like that when you first buy a house because they're like, yeah, there's mortgage payments, but also there's insurance on the house, but also there's insurance on your mortgage, but also there's property tax. And you don't know what that is for the first 4 months. And you're like, save up some amount of money. Okay. Right. And it's like all these things. So for you guys to be like, hey, I technically only have to pay half a mortgage, but if I just set aside that full amount, it takes care of all those costs. And like you said, any like boo-boos on the house, any scratches, any frat parties with holes in the wall, it's fixed. Like you've got that. And my biggest question is like, is this just like a trust thing that you guys are going to do it? Or did you go to a lawyer? Did you write up an agreement?
We do. We have an agreement that we each have a signed copy of. So the idea is that, we have the house for a certain amount of time with the agreement being these stipulations and these things that we've all agreed to. And in that certain amount of time, that's the rules. And then at the end of that time period, we got to kind of reconvene and decide what we're doing. And if we can't come to an agreement, we sell the place, split the money, and leave. So it's not, in my mind, it's not very difficult. It's just, you have to be in a certain situation to have that happen. You have to have somebody that you trust enough, that you've, maybe lived with before, that you're close enough with, and be cool with the rules being the rules. And deal with all that shit before you move in. Because then it's like you're doing it from a place of, you're both friends, you've agreed to this, so whenever there's any argument, you just reference that document. Mm-hmm. And say like, look, man, I don't have to argue with you because we've already made the rules. The rules is the rules.
It's like the loft agreement in New Girl.
Yeah, it's the loft agreement, exactly.
So what happens, you guys did this when you were, 27 years old is when you bought the house?
Yeah. Well, no, I had just turned 28. It hasn't been a year yet.
You just turned 28. So what happens when one of you gets in a serious relationship?
So, well, that actually has happened. So Cooper has recently, this year, gotten into a serious relationship. So he has a girlfriend now that he's quite happy with and quite serious about. And like, to be honest with you, not too much has really changed because, again, we've established this thing about this is what's happening with the house. You know, you're committed for this certain amount of time. It's already kind of agreed upon. So everything is more just like your casual roommate stuff. You're sharing space, you're, you know, dishes, bathrooms, whatever, like the basic shit that we've all gotten a handle on earlier in our 20s. If we went to school or, you know, had a roommate or anything, you just sort of, you find a way to deal with it. You have your, I don't know, your attitude towards it and how you deal with things. And it's been fine.
So is the thought that, so say Cooper's girlfriend decides to move in, it's between them to work out his half of the deal. Because really, like when you sell it, that's that whole half. It sucks that it's not a third each if, say, she were to move in, but you still get half the equity if you stick to your portion. You know what I mean? So is that how it works? Like it would be up to him to like figure that out. Sorry, we're talking about Cooper behind.
So no, that's cool. So like our sort of agreement on that is like there isn't going to be a situation where 3 people are living in this house.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's going to be, for the duration of time, whoever moves out, I move out with somebody, he moves out with somebody, he's still on the hook for that half of the money for as long as we both own this house type of thing and we decide what we're doing with it. So they're like, for that time period that our current agreement is, afterwards, we'll revisit it and come up with something else, or we'll just sell the place and he'll take his half of the money and go off with his girlfriend, do whatever he wants to do, and I'll take my half, and that's it.
So I remember you talking about the process of getting a house in Hamilton and it being difficult because you're 2 young guys, not a lot of people want to sell to you. Can you talk about how you made that happen?
So I'll preface this where we never said anything directly about the nature of our relationship. We never clarified to anyone, and we got to a point where we had looked at so many houses and we had gotten so many rejections, and just the process of it was so grueling that we started writing letters to people when we put offers in. So we wrote these really nice letters, and for this house, I knew that it was a very kind female owner with a dog. So we had walked through the house, and I sort of gathered information about her, I guess, like things that I thought would appeal to her based on what she had out in her home. I deciphered. This is going to sound so creepy, by the way.
It already does.
It's great. It's fine.
I went in her underwear drawer.
I absolutely did not. Absolutely did not happen. But she had a lot of stuff for like Cosmopolitan. She had like a bar cart. She had a lot of pictures of her and her dog. She had pictures of her and her friends. So I wrote a letter that really appealed to that and suggested that the nature of mine and Cooper's relationship was one that we might happily buy a dog together and be spending more time in one room than maybe we do. And I think that appealed to her, and she felt like she was doing a favor to a young couple, and that is how I conned our way into buying this house.
I love it. I love that.
That's
story.
amazing. And you've put, before this house, you guys had put other offers in, correct?
I think we went through, it was like 17. We definitely saw over 20 houses, and we put offers in on 6 or 7 of them.
And that must be so hard because you get so attached to one house, and then it's like a little mini heartbreak because you picture your future with Cooper in that house.
I stopped doing that because it was like I had just been hurt too many times. I stopped getting my hopes up for houses at that point because I was just like, my heart has been broken. I'm still in that state where it's like, you know, when you have like a really bad breakup and you're just kind of out there and you're meeting people, but like you don't care. You're not really putting anything into it. You're just like, I'm going to have this conversation and maybe it's going to lead somewhere. Maybe it's not. But if there's any rejection, I've already closed myself off to it. That's how I felt about houses.
So speaking of breakups, have you ever been in a serious relationship throughout your 20s?
Yeah, absolutely.
What factors played into, because you're single now.
Yes.
So what factors played into the decision of ending that relationship?
I think that if there's one thing I've learned, it goes back to that whole, like, people our age are very concerned for themselves. It's not that they're only concerned with themselves. It's that they're worried about certain things in their life, and they're worried about how together their lives are, and they're worried about comparing their life to other people's, their parents, whatever. And they think that they need to have certain ducks in a row to be happy. And to a degree, I think that is important. I think that there's a lot of that stuff that you do have to kind of have one hand on the wheel or sort of an idea with before you get into making my stuff our stuff. So I think it's for me, it was getting to that point where, you know, I was dating somebody who was finishing up a degree, and, you know, she was not sure where she was going to be when she graduated, based on job prospects, based on even just wanting to live in certain locations. Whereas my stuff was feeling pretty handled. You know, like I had a plan for buying this house. I had my job. I had my friends. I had my family that I want to be close to. And it's like all of my things that I was concerned about were kind of cool. So I was in a position where I was like really down to have a relationship and like not be so concerned with me and dive into that. So I really went kind of headfirst into the emotional side of that relationship. So I guess when things sort of came to a close, there was just so many things that she was concerned about for herself that I was sort of like, well, like you need to sort that. Like you need to take that time and go and do it and handle it.
Yeah.
And like one of my favorite things to say to people, and it was like a hilarious thing that a drunk person said to me once, and it just resonated with me. And that's, have you considered that this isn't about you? and I think that that's such like a profound thing once you stop and realize that like most of the time the answer is no. I haven't actually stopped and considered that this thing that's been bothering me isn't actually about me. So I think that when you get to that point and you're like, I'm all in, but you're in a space where you need to handle some shit, it's really important that we do that you let go and be cool about it.
How long had you guys been dating before you got to this point? Like, did you realize this together?
So it's funny because this sort of same idea has happened to me a few times in my life, with one relationship that was 3 years, one that was 6 months. So it sort of has happened. The first time around, it was really hard because I was not prepared and had not realized the things that I had realized, right? I was considering that it was entirely about me and that this person just didn't love me anymore because I was garbage, right? And you get into that, like, that stupid headspace where you're like, fuck, you can't pull yourself out of it until you think about it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So the second time around was like weirdly comforting, right? It's like you've leveled up. You are prepared for this level of the video game.
You're like, I got this.
You're like, I'm awesome. This is definitely not about me.
You're like, this is James Bond N64 GoldenEye. I just picked up the golden gun. I am ready for this shit.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about you, Jordan, is your ability to pull analogies out of your ass in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, because I do that all the time. They never make sense to anyone but me. And yours are spot on.
They're really good.
Did you know the wordplay you were doing when you said that, Bridget?
What?
Analogies. A-N-A-L-A-G's out of your ass?
No, I didn't know I was doing that. Analogies.
Analogies? That's the new term. It's an analogy when you pulled it out of your ass. That's the whole takeaway from this podcast. Nothing else that has been said is useful to anybody, but there's going to be like a billion people walking around referencing analogies.
Hashtag analogies 2021.
Hashtag analogies.
It's not what I want to be known for, but I'll let it happen if that's where this podcast goes. It's just
whatever works.
But seriously, Jordan, like what an interesting perspective, because I think for this younger generation with online dating and life shit, and in our 20s, we think that we're going to own houses and we're going to have jobs and we're going to find that person and we're going to have babies and have married and have dogs and blah, 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 all these things. And then when they don't happen, we're so disappointed. And I see a lot of millennials getting frustrated because of how our generation is growing up. And part of that is like, most of us don't have just like a religion to fall back on to say, this is how things go. Or, tradition within your own beliefs. Like if you're a lost soul going like, I have no fucking clue, it is really hard. And it's hard not to take it personal when like two souls are together, and it could be really great, but like the timing's just not there. How do you not take it personally when like one person's like, I'm ready, I'm here, I've got my shit together? It's fully timing that the first time you were like, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. I'd like this person to be around and they're not. Great. Let's add this to the notch of shit. I don't know what the fuck's going on. But the second time around, you're able to go like, here's some perspective on life. This is just a reality. This isn't necessary. And for someone you care so much about, you were able to look at her and say like, you need to be alone right now for you, right? Like you had your shit together and you're ready to be open and vulnerable for a person. You deserve a person who is open and ready to give you that vulnerability. You know what I mean?
Like that's huge, I think. And I think it's because, Mary, you and I are similar age. We've kind of had a lot of similar experiences in talking with you. And I think that like, this is something you get, but it's very hard for people who are younger. Maybe it's like their second relationship ever, or maybe even their first, where it's like you put a lot of weight on the emotional side of it. And like, I'm not saying I'm not a romantic person. I'm not saying that like I don't believe in that, butterflies taking over everything. Logic doesn't matter because you're so in love, and that's going to work and drive you till you're old and gray. And that's awesome. And if you can find that, holy, I am so happy for you. Mm-hmm. But I think the more times it doesn't work out, it's easy to fill your head with garbage because of how much weight you put on needing to have that life partner.
Yeah.
And it really fits with you, especially if it's like you feel like that's the last piece of the puzzle, right? Like we have this like checklist in our head where we feel like I need to have all these things sorted out before I can be happy. And, like I said before, we readjust our priorities to make our happiness accessible sometimes. And I think this is one of those moments where you need to readjust your priority, because just because it's the last thing on your checklist that you think you need to handle, it doesn't necessarily mean that the next person who gives you a little wink is going to be the person that you marry. It might be another heartbreak situation. They might not be ready. It might not be about you.
I hope that the girl, whoever this girl was, hears that, because only ever growing up as a female, the perspective I have is like, there's been this like past of women are just going to be taken care of, or you have a certain place in society and your role in a household and a family. So if the man has their shit together, great, we're good to go. But you need people in your life that are able to say like, no, like you should learn to be alone. Bridget and I talked about it recently. Like one of our favorite part of our 20s is being independent and learning about ourselves, and like sitting in our discomforts and learning about being alone. Like Bridget said the other day, she's like, the past year of growth of like being alone in her bedroom during COVID has been huge. And she's so excited to keep going with that part of the podcast. She's so excited. And like having men be able to turn around and say that. And like, I hope some of the things you said to us today, you said to that girl, because hopefully she can turn around and be like, yeah, I should be on my own. I should find myself.
And that you're right. It was as candid of a conversation as what was had. And I've tried to do that. It's important to have those like sort of open conversations in those situations like that, because it's easy, like I said before, to just assume things. And put how other people feel into your head without asking them directly or feeling that from them, or, you know, giving them a chance to say that. So, and that's where you just end up hating somebody that you don't actually need to hate, right? It was like a real, just honest experience that they needed to figure some shit out. It had nothing to do with you. And you don't need to spend your whole life feeling inadequate or shitty or sad. And that person is no less cool or great, or everything you liked about them is definitely still intact because that's who they are as a person. If the only decision they had to make was entirely about you, and you reflect on who they are as a person, that decision wouldn't have been made, right? If there was only one choice to make and it directly was about your happiness, they probably would have just chosen your happiness.
Guys, I'm just like sitting back here and I feel like I'm in a therapy session right now because I am literally going through this right now, where I was with somebody that I saw the rest of my life with, and I'm going through a breakup right now, which I'll probably get more into depth in a future episode about, but these are the things that are going through my head and the realizations that I'm making. So it's really nice to hear it from a different perspective and from somebody who can just say, who's been through it before and can be like, no, these are the facts. Get your emotions out of the game. Like, just go, be yourself again.
Well, it's not necessarily like get your emotions out of the game. Like, I'm not a cold-hearted bastard, and I'm just like, you need to Terminator this shit. Nobody matters. It's just you. Hot girl summer. Let's go. But in a way, it's like, it's thinking that it doesn't have to do with you. It's easier to come to terms with your emotions from it because you're not adding misinformation to it, right? You're just like, I'm sad about this because I'm sad about this. I'm not sad about this because my ex-boyfriend thinks I'm ugly or is in love with somebody else or whatever, right? It's like you add that shit on your own because you've made it about you. A lot
of times in those scenarios, you're wanting to place your anger, to place your anxiety, and so you put it into, okay, well, oh, they said this, well, they're a dick, which just makes it easier than being hurt or being vulnerable and being like, this just sucks and is sad.
You don't have to sit with it. Because it's like now you're the victim, right? You're like, this has happened to me. I need vengeance. I need to go out and I need to get hammered and I need to date 6 more people.
Which is very hard to do in a post-COVID or in a not post-COVID.
You can order from breweries, Bridget. You're just not being very resourceful.
Yeah, I can't order boys from breweries, Jordan.
Yeah.
Oh my God, new business.
Uber boys.
The delivery guy shows up. He's been slugging 2-4s all day into that truck. His biceps are huge.
Boys and brews. You order a 6-pack. They show up with a 6-pack and a 6-pack.
New business idea. Scrap the podcast.
Starting businesses.
We can do it. Brews
right,
and boys.
6-packs and 6-packs.
All right, so Jordan, earlier you were talking about being in the music industry, and now you have your own record label. Is that what it is? It's a record label?
Yeah.
Called Canary Minor? Canary Minor
Yes.
Music?
Yes, ma'am.
So what kind of process was that to start that up? What made you want to start your own record label?
A lot of it, honestly, was the shutdown was when I started getting a little more serious about it, was this just idea that so much content was being created by creators that I believe in, by artists that I love, that work very hard, that have kind of had their whole industry taken away from them, who were just starting to get some momentum. You know, maybe they had a tour booked. And these are all artists that maybe I've worked with to some degree in production, songwriting, just help them out with marketing, whatever, along the road. And it became this sort of idea where, like, I was like, these people need help. They need a team. They need somebody they can trust. I was able to provide some resources through our current job and even just on my own. So my partners in this business, one of which is Steve Bronchode. He owns a studio on his property. It's a beautiful studio. So, I mean, he's got that business going. So I saw this as a way to leverage people in from artists that are recording there and that we're working with, and help with distribution and help with marketing and even making contacts, because I know that when this thing subsides, everybody's going to want to get out of the gate running. And a lot of independent artists don't know how to do that, or they just don't have the support system, and they don't know how to position themselves or have the time to do it or whatever to be able to come out with a release into the new year and support it and have it do what they want to do. So we started Canary Minor Music. I've always kind of had the business under my belt. That was kind of what I was running my songwriting and production stuff through when I was working with an artist. That was my business name, so to call it. So we just sort of, me and Steve and my roommate Coop, who's great with marketing, we sat down and we just decided that we were going to make this available as a real business to people. So we signed on a roster. We've had some great releases. We've done some really cool stuff in the small amount of time we've been around. One of which is like we've gotten one of our artists synced on a show for APTN called Querencia. Catherine Fisher's song Roots is in the second episode of that. She made that happen for herself, but that's kind of a cool little nod thing. We're releasing Stephen Ryan's album. So Steve has been working on this record for years. So we met up and we kind of have a game plan, and he's going to be releasing this music now, which is like great, awesome music that I can't wait for everybody to hear. And it took sort of this business coming together for him to be like, you know what, fuck it. I've been working way too hard to not share this content with the world. I think it's good enough. And I have a team that I trust in, and we're going to get it
and
out.
we have a cool little collab coming up with Stephen Ryan's new album. So, but
I was waiting for you to say it. It's not my thing to plug.
Yes, but we're keeping it on the hush hush right now, and but it's gonna be super cool. We're really excited about it. So Jordan, are you doing any artist recruitment? If anybody's listening to this and they want to, they want to be with Canary Minor, how would they go about doing that? Yeah.
Like for me, it's been very grassroots. It's been very much about artists that we work with and like and know. So for me, it's very much about establishing a relationship. Like if you're an artist and you could use a team and you want to do some cool stuff together, please, by all means, message me, invite me to a show. Let's hang out and chat. Because the thing with this business is very much not being that just website, click, hire, offer a service, we'll take anybody.
I love that.
It's very much about like, we're going to put time into you and we're going to really try to help you as much as we can. And I need to know that I can do that with you, and I need to know that we vibe. I think, definitely hit us up on Instagram, Canary Minor Music, Facebook. You can just email me, canaryminormusic@gmail.com.
Amazing. We'll link all of that in the show notes as well.
Cool.
Well, I do want to say it is very impressive because you have been very focused on happiness and lifestyle. And I think that that's something that people can learn from. I would be interested to know if you even have anything. Is there anything when you look back that you would do differently?
I would do a lot of stuff differently. Like I think like my perspectives on things have really come from spots where I do regret what I did, or, how I reacted to something, or been too closed off, or whatever it was. They all came from like positions. I think like you have to regret something in order to want to change it, right? So I think there's a lot of situations where, like relationships, how I treated schooling. I was really not into school. I didn't value knowledge and learning as much as I valued experiences. Mm-hmm. And now I'm sort of coming into this spot where I do really wish I listened more to people who were trying to teach me in a lot of ways. Like I talk a lot about, you try to be the cool teacher, and I like the cool teachers because of who they were. and how they responded to their environment and how they treated people. And I was very focused on that. But I missed out on a lot of the actual content of what people were trying to show me. Like, hell, I went to an engineering college for audio engineering. And if you put me in front of a console today, I bet you I couldn't even run it by myself. Because that 3-hour engineering lecture where they taught you what all the little knobbies do, I just zoned out because it was boring to me, and it just didn't fit with what I wanted to do. I wanted to do business and marketing, and I wanted to, be the cool guy that introduced all the bands. Like the science of it was nothing to me. And now going into the studio and working with people, I really wish that I could double as the engineer as well as the producer. Like, that would be a huge benefit to me. But there's so many instances in my life where I just didn't care about the actual knowledge.
Yeah, I feel that way too. When I look back on my schooling, it's like there were so many valuable things that I could have absorbed at that point in my life, but I was focused on, getting the experience of being in school and partying and all that stuff. I still did my stuff, but there's a lot of knowledge that if I had gone to school when I was a bit older, I definitely would have absorbed more, and I would have been more
totally. And it's hard because everyone says to you when you're in school, like, oh, take advantage of these resources. Like, you'll miss it when it's gone. And I remember that in school. I was like, whatever.
Blah, blah,
it's
blah.
Fine. And then literally the year later, I'm like, damn, that was a lot of good stuff. And now I have none of it. Great. Cool. So Jordan, what would be your advice to 20-somethings now?
Yeah, like, I keep going back to it, but talk.
Elaborate.
Bridget did not like that answer. Talk.
I was like, I've always done
We've
that.
literally been told to shut up.
No, I mean, I don't mean like just talk because you like hearing yourself talk. I mean, like, the best things that have helped me make decisions or come to terms with things or kind of figure out what I'm going to do has been from having friends that what we do when we hang out a lot of the time is this. We sit around and we chat. There's no microphones or cameras, but we just kind of work through shit. And a lot of it is just talking. And I think having relationships where you can just talk is such a big thing. And again, to go back to it, it's keeping your happiness accessible. And I know you're so concerned about yourself during these years, but be cognizant of that. Don't forget to care about people. Because that's something I think I've done a lot over the years, being so concerned with setting up my own shit. And it's like, I've done it to a degree, and I'm happy with where I'm at. But at the same time, I think there was a lot of times where I could have been a better friend or a family member or there for somebody, and just I didn't notice that I would have been of benefit in that situation because I was so hyper focused on what I was doing. And I think I missed out on a lot of really cool moments with people and chances to solidify those relationships because of how I was, focused. So I think that's, if there's 3 things: talk to the people you love all the time, make friendships where you can do that, keep your happiness accessible, and don't forget to care about people.
I love it. Such great words of wisdom, Jordan. So thanks so much for coming on the podcast today and being our first guest that we've interviewed besides each other and our mothers, and for putting up with us, not being able to come up with questions off the top of our heads. So you mentioned earlier, if people want to get in contact with you about Canary Minor or for some insight into the music industry or just life in general, the best way to do that is on Instagram or by email, which I will link in the show notes.
Yeah, like, again, I'm on all the social media too. Like, Jordan Percival Music is my personal Instagram handle. You can message me there. I'm always happy to chat with people. I like friends.
Amazing. Well, this has been another episode of Talking 20. Just a reminder to make sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're consuming it on. This, along with rates and reviews, seriously helps us to grow the podcast, so it's the best way to show your support. We would also love if you followed along with our journey on Facebook and Instagram at Talking 20 Podcast. Thanks for listening.